brought mimosas.
Maybe it's time.
Welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable's The Actress. I'm Stephen Galloway, and I'd like to introduce Isabelle Huppert, Natalie Portman, Annette Bening, Naomie Harris, Amy Adams, Emma Stone, and Taraji P. Henson. Imagine you have a time capsule. You can put one great performance from film in that time capsule. What do you want it to be?
I think I would choose right off as Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington and...
That's two.
One. I would have to say Tom Hanks in Philadelphia.
Why?
Because it speaks to what's happening today in the world and, you know, including everybody in healthcare and... Yeah, it's still an epidemic. We don't have a handle on that yet.
Does a great performance have to speak to a particular problem?
No, but you said a time capsule, right? So we're gone. So that's an important piece. You know, people need to know that that was a problem at a time, you know, and he fought for his rights.
Naomie, what about you?
I am obsessed with The Sound of Music.
Oh.
That is my favorite movie.
Really?
I'm just going to put it out there. I'm sorry. It's really sad. I'm really cheesy and I'm really romantic. And that's what I like. So I'm going to put Julie Andrews in there. Because no matter how I'm feeling, she makes me feel better. You know?
Amy?
Can I use that answer? That just is sort of my personality as well. So you and I will go do a sing-along after.
Right.
I went to the sing-along with the...
Did you
at the Hollywood Bowl with my children. Yeah.
Oh my God.
People dress up like boxes wrapped with string. And, no, it was amazing. Yeah, my kids were sort of bewildered, but I was really excited.
It also handles a really important time in history about what was happening, you know, on the precipice of that war. So that's it. It handles it in a really lovely way. I mean, I don't mean to steal your answer. But I have no original thought this morning, so I'm going with that. But it's good when I think about it. That film really does. It talks about humanity in a very sort of specific way.
Annette, how about you?
The first thing that popped into my head was Liv Ullmann in Persona. But I think that was because that was one of the first sort of serious movies that I saw in the little art house that was in San Diego where I grew up. So I hadn't seen films like that before. I was more of a Sound of Music, which, by the way, I also want to steal your answer. That wouldn't be fair, because then it would be two people stealing it. No, because I also love that. But so that kind of, I had seen, you know, The Odd Couple and Sound of Music and Bambi and probably a few other movies. But then I saw that film, and that, you know, that way of making films and this sort of beauty that she has and had in that film, and of course Bibi Andersson too. So that made a big impression on me, and she made a big impression on me.
Natalie?
Oh man, this is a really hard question. I mean, I think the first thing that popped into my head when you said it is Emily Watson in Breaking the Waves. I feel like that relationship with God and with herself and her sexuality and all of that is so human and strange. And
I love that performance. Isabelle?
Usually I have difficulties to answer such question, and strangely enough, when you asked me this question right away, I thought of Shirley MacLaine in Some Came Running.
Oh, yes.
The Santé film.
She is such an extraordinary actress.
Well,
and
for me,
she's
really,
and drama.
she's just the actress for me. Yeah.
Oh, was it supposed to be an actress?
Or actor.
No, actor, yeah.
Never mind, go ahead.
I thought you choose a French actor or actress.
Oh, yes, I've been very faithful to my country.
Emma?
Well, I don't want anybody to feel bad, so
You're an American actress. Emma, how about you?
I have two that are tied in my mind right now, but I have to choose one, right? All right. John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Because, I'm serious, because I think that was the first time that I really understood. There is one scene in that movie that I think is just changed my life, which is the Chatty Cathy scene. And this man that's so lonely, and it's just because comedy means everything to me. So that he could combine that kind of his depth and he just breaks your heart and he makes you laugh and he does it all so beautifully. So, yeah.
Would you say comedy means everything? Do you prefer acting in comedy?
Not necessarily, but I think that comedy like saved me as a kid. Because I was so in my head and so tense and anxious that comedy really changed everything for me, watching comedy and, you know, seeing like Steve Martin in The Jerk or John Candy in Planes, Trains and Automobiles. That opened up the world to me, so.
Do you remember what made you decide to go into acting?
Just my teacher putting me in the first grade play, and it was all fifth graders, and I was the only first grader, which felt so cool because everyone was so much older than me. So I was like, oh, I'm cool up here. And then I felt like I had an outlet in a way, and it was just so incredible. And then doing youth theater, I felt the same. I wanted to do theater. I thought that would be what I would do, and then I wasn't, you know, the most excellent singer or dancer in the world, so I realized I couldn't do much Broadway. But it's funny to be here talking about a musical movie. Yeah, exactly. But I was like, I'm never going to be able to actually do this on stage. But I love musicals. Too. I did do cabaret,
yes, with great reviews.
Well,
were you scared being on stage?
No, I being on stage, I think, in many ways, I feel less pressure on stage than I do on screen. Because eventually it's forever. At some point, you're going to be done with the scene and you're going to have to go home and live with yourself, with what you did that day. And every night in theater, you get the opportunity, you know, you could fail miserably and fall on your face and go, well, I got to get up and do it again tomorrow, which I love and I think builds such an incredible resilience in you. And it was amazing to do cabaret and then come to do La La Land because, you know, I had that going, but, you know, then he would send me home and it would be over and...
And you'd
be like, oh, yeah, exactly. No, I've ruined the entire arc of the character, obviously, because that day was just terrible. But yeah. Here's to the mess we make. She captured a feeling, sky with no ceiling, the sunset inside a frame. Here's to the ones who dream, foolish as they may seem.
Who else prefers theatre or film? Isabelle, you've done both?
Oh yes, I do a lot of theatre. I don't think I prefer theatre, actually. I mean, for me, theatre, making movies would be a nice ride as opposed to theatre that would be climbing a very high mountain, you know. But the view is spectacular once you're on top of the mountain, of course, but it's a lot more challenging, of course, to do theatre. And it's interesting what Emma just said, you know, of course, when you do theatre, if you do it wrong, you can do it better the next day. I'll think about that when I do it next time, which is actually next week. Yes, I'm doing a very contemporary version of Phaedra, directed by a great Polish director called Krzysztof Walikowski, which combines several texts, including Phaedra's Love by Sarah Kane, who is a great English playwright, that I did 448 Psychosis from Sarah Kane. Wow. But anyway, I like doing both. Of course, theatre is so exciting. I mean, you come to express certain kind of emotions, and it's absolutely amazing when you really reach the point, which happens not every evening, sometimes only once a week, but when you reach that, it's fantastic.
Well, this production you're doing, isn't it 3.5 hours
Yes, long? It is. It's very long, but it might be a big mountain for the audience as well. I have to say. But
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, and sometimes people walk away, so apparently they don't climb up the mountain. They have to stop halfway through, but never mind. We're still there.
You started in theatre, Annette. Is there any great role you'd like to do that you haven't done on stage?
It's tricky because sometimes just wanting to do a good role, a great role, isn't a good enough reason to do it. Because, of course, you've got an entire production around you. For instance, you mentioned this director who is, from what I understand, a great genius. I haven't seen this production that you did. So when you have something like that around you, then it's not just, oh, I want to play Hedda Gabler or whatever it is. When you have that, I think it feels much better. Yeah, I think very rarely it works well if it's just somebody wanting to play a role. It has to be
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? It has to be a group of people around you.
Yeah.
So I recently was obsessed with this monologuist named Ruth Draper. She wrote and performed her own monologues. And that was at a time when people did that much more. And she was American, but she was sort of an international phenom. And she would tour around the world doing these monologues that she created. And she was amazing. So I did that recently. And that was really demanding. And in a way that it was like a marathon. It's like we were talking about climbing a mountain. So I wanted to do that. I wanted that experience of, could I do this? And I thought, maybe I'll take it to New York, maybe I'll take it to London. But then once I did it here in LA, I sort of felt like I'd done it, but I was glad I did it. But then when I was done, I was glad I was done. It was like a journey. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I went on that trip, but I'm glad I'm back home now, so.
Yeah.
Do you get stage fright?
Yes, but not paralyzing, but I have fear all the time with the work.
Amy?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Paralyzing. Stage fright.
Stage fright, more than in the with the camera?
I used to have it with the camera.
Yeah.
I figured that out, thankfully. But with stage, I didn't realize how bad it was until I was doing Into the Woods in Central Park, and there would be times where I literally thought I wouldn't be able to walk on stage. Not at the beginning. Yeah, not at the beginning, because I was back there and it was a wonderful time because the whole cast was ducked on these
And that
stairs.
atmosphere is so great.
And that was
in
so
the park
great.
and everything.
Yeah, and the familial environment of that moment was very, I didn't feel alone, which is one of the songs. So that's I didn't feel alone, so I felt like a real team effort, which for me is something that I'm really attracted to in film and on stage. Like, I don't ever want to be in front of things, so it's not natural to me. And so as we all go out there and do the first number, which is I Wish, it felt so wonderful. But then, like, sort of as it started to sort of go into their own storylines, I would be like, oh no, I have to make an entrance, okay. But it's such once I was able to let it go and focus on the other people on stage, I'm okay. But I think the worst stage fright I ever had was singing alone at the Oscars.
Oh my God.
Maybe this year.
I thought about that.
Yes,
I was like,
do it.
At least you didn't have to sing about pigs and whores.
You actually did it. You did that. That was my first year I was nominated, and I was like, she's up there singing at the Oscars. I thought I was
pretty
really
scary.
impressed.
I had to look over everyone's heads because it's not like, what I'm singing about is the most,
Taraji, you played a real-life person in Hidden Figures. Did you sense an added responsibility?
Yes, it's scary when they're still alive. But once I met her and just started studying her mannerisms, and I asked her a lot of questions, and what I did find that was parallel in our lives is that I hate math. Oh God, yeah, I just not wired that way. And I think it was because as girls, we were always told math and science is for boys. So I guess I believed that. And because we never knew this part of history, we never knew about these women. I always thought when you think NASA, I think men smoking in a room. Like I never think women, and who knew? Who knew they existed? I never knew this story, this dream belonged to me to even dream. Really, to me, the movie is about humanity, humans coming together, focusing on one goal, and getting to that goal. You don't care what the person looks like or who they sleep with at night or what God they pray to. Can we get to this goal together? How do we push humanity forward? And I just really believe that everything is messed up right now. We all know what's going on in the world without getting too political, but I'm spiritual when it comes to acting. I really believe it's a spiritual thing we do. I believe the universe will order up certain stories when the world needs it, when the people need it. And this story may not have been a hit 10 years ago because people were everywhere else, or maybe that wasn't the thing. But I think that story is very important now, today, and in this specific moment in time. And I'm just honored and grateful to God that He used me as a vessel, one of the vessels, to tell this story. I will have you know, I was the first Negro female student at West Virginia University Graduate School. On any given day, I analyze the manometer levels for air displacement, friction, and velocity, and compute over 10,000 calculations by hand. So yes, they let women do some things at NASA, Mr. Johnson. And it's not because we wear skirts. It's because we wear glasses. She was a genius. She graduated high school at 14. She was done with college at 18. She just loved numbers. And because she had such a deep understanding for numbers, She would be in classes and her professor told her one time, I am sick and tired of you asking me questions that I know you know the answers to. And she said, well, I know these 6 students around me don't know, and I want them to understand like I do. So that's how she would teach when she became a professor, and she taught her students how to fall in love with numbers like she loved them. And I thought, wow, what if I had a teacher like that? You know, I may have not failed miserably in math. Maybe I would have loved math. You know, maybe
Did you
I
have a
wouldn't-
teacher like that for anything else?
Acting.
Oh, wow.
You know, acting. Because I guess because I was just it was in me to do it. I could say that all day long about a math teacher. I still would have found acting. That's just, it's in me. It's in me.
I would have still been bad at math. So.
Yeah.
Natalie, you played another real-life character, but you couldn't go to her, playing Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Did you feel an extra burden, a historical burden?
Yeah, well, I guess it's different because if they're still alive, then you have this sort of responsibility to them, or you know that they're going to be watching it. So maybe it was freeing in a way, knowing she wasn't going to watch it, you know?
To me, I think it's harder to do what you're doing because that's an iconic character. So everyone knows what she looks like, how she walks, how she sounds.
It's got a different challenge, which is that you have to sort of get to a threshold of believability before anyone can ever relate to you emotionally, because if you don't just pass that initial, like, does she look enough and sound enough and, you know, walk enough like her that we can buy her as this character, then, you know, they can't lose themselves in the story no matter what story you're going to tell.
You'll have to share something personal eventually. People won't stop asking until you do.
And if I don't, they'll interpret my silence however they want. Her brow furrows, her lips are drawn. She holds back her tears, but she can't hide her anger.
Most writers want to be famous.
You want to be famous?
No, I am fine as I am, thank you.
You should prepare yourself. This article will bring you a great deal of attention.
Oh, in that case, any advice for me?
Yes. Don't marry the president. I had always had this image of her, impression of her as smart, but when you start looking at the transcripts of her interviews post-assassination, where she was really trying to define her husband's legacy and create an oral history of his presidency, she knew every single name and party affiliation and lobbying position of every person that ever walked into his office, to the point where, like, Pablo, the director, and I would look at each other while we were going through the material and going, like, was she, like, referencing, you know, other books or materials while she was doing these interviews? Because she was encyclopedic in her knowledge of what was going on. She was never invited into the room. You know, this is her, like, in the hall watching, and she understood everything that was going on. So that was impressive to learn.
You had Darren Aronofsky, who directed you in Black Swan, and he was going to direct this film and then produced it. Mm-hmm. Was he around as a producer? Did he jump in as a director?
No, he didn't. He didn't. I think the reason he wanted Pablo to do it was because he knew how capable he was, and really respected him, I think, director to director, to have his own space.
Annette, you played director Mike Mills's mother in 20th Century Women. Did you have conversations about her?
Oh, no, we talked endlessly about her, and we're still talking about her. Yeah, no, that was a joy, because Mike wrote and directed the movie. His preoccupation with it and the way that he was trying to investigate his mother became fascinating to me. And also, of course, it was his mom, but then it was also this other woman that was in this fictional story. So it's me interpreting Mike's interpretation of his mother. And sometimes I would think, oh, maybe she wasn't really like that, Mike, you know? I didn't even know her, but no, I began to think about that, and he knew that, you know, that it's all subjective. But this notion of trying to get to know your parents, I've become more and more interested in this idea, because I think all of us, there's a certain gulf between us and our parents, no matter how much we love them, that there's a part of them that's kind of unknowable to us. And then the reverse is also true. I mean, I have 4 kids, so, you know your children so deeply from when they're so tiny. And then now my kids are young adults. But again, it's the same thing. There's always a longing to know more and a longing to understand more, and that we're all so close, and because we love each other so deeply, there's a certain blindness as well. Are you helping him?
I'm trying.
Really?
What about you? Have you thought about your impact on him? It's always about the mother. Like, do you think you've moved on since his dad?
You know that you're not actually a therapist?
Mike and I, we're still talking about her and wondering about her and asking questions. And when new things happen, like with the election, this was saw him last night, he said, Annette, I was thinking about you all day of the election. And I knew what he meant, because when he's thinking about his mother now, he's kind of thinking about her through me and what all of our reactions were to that and everything.
Would you want your kids to follow you into acting?
Yes, if they wanted to. I think it's what you were saying, Taraji, it's a passion thing. If it's something you're passionate about, whatever it is, I would say yes. I mean, I've realized recently that there was a part of me that thought there was some way I could protect my children from feeling pain, which is so ridiculous. I mean, it wasn't like I thought about it consciously, but I think in my unconscious, I sort of thought about that. So, there's a lot of rejection you have to accept. And then once you even get the job, then there's a question of putting yourself out there and doing it. It's one thing theoretically to want to act. In fact, the best time is when you just get the job. Because then you don't have to do it yet. You can just think about it. Oh, I had that thing.
When you got the job on Moonlight, for those who haven't seen it.
I have seen it.
Which is really an extraordinary film. Here's the character that we see age over decades. And you had 3 days to shoot it. When you took it on, did you think you were going to get longer?
Well, yeah, it was never meant to be 3 days. It was because I had issues with visas because I'm British. So it was meant to be, yes.
You're British? Oh,
I am.
You didn't know that?
I had no idea.
You going to the Bond film?
I thought she was from California.
So nice to have another English person.
It's reassuring.
How did you do it in 3 days?
You know what, it's so weird actually, because I never felt like it was 3 days. I never felt rushed. It's only now that everybody's saying, oh my gosh, it was done in 3 days. That's insane. And I'm like, yeah, it is insane, actually. But at the time, it seemed perfectly reasonable, because Barry Jenkins, our director, was so calm and so reassuring. And he made me feel as though I had all the time in the world, which is weird because it was made on a tiny little budget and we didn't have enough time. And it was crazy, because it was shot out of sequence. So I was going from older Paula to younger Paula to back to older to middle, it was kind of intense. But at the time, I was just so in it. And I never felt like this was a feat that we had to achieve. It just felt perfectly doable.
I need some money.
For what?
That's my business. Don't you ask me no shit like that.
I don't have no money.
No, don't lie to me, boy. I'm your mama. That bitch over there ain't no Kenya. I'm your blood, remember? Now, I ain't feeling good. I need something to help me out. Come on, baby. Come on, baby.
I'd done so much research as well because, I knew that it was going to be this tiny amount of time on set. So I thought, let me make sure I know this character inside and out.
How did you research that?
YouTube.
Oh.
YouTube, I think, I discovered, it's my first time discovering this, but it's an incredible mine of information. Like, it has everything, because you have people with their camera phones who go down into crack dens and record interviews with people, information that you would never be able to get from any other source. Because obviously, I don't know anything about Miami in the 1980s or what have you, but I felt through these clips that I saw online that I got a real insight into those communities and those people's lives, and that's what helped me. That's
Were
how I
you
built the
reluctant
character.
to play a black woman who's a crack addict?
I was, yeah. I grew up with very strong, intelligent, powerful women, and I didn't feel as though they were reflected enough on screen. And so I sort of made it my mission that I was going to make my choices based on portraying positive images of women in general and black women in particular. But then Barry Jenkins told me, like you, it was, he asked me to play his mum, basically. Right. And I thought, here's someone who's emotionally invested in ensuring that this character is given her full complexity and her full humanity.
She hasn't seen the film yet, has she?
No, she won't see it
Wow.
at the moment.
Did you meet
It's
her?
too much. No, she wouldn't come on set either. No.
It's lovely to have you both as African American women here. Do you feel that the
I'm
industry...
black? Oh my God, I'm so much.
I'm
sorry, African American.
Well, you're not American, no.
You're learning so much, right?
Do you feel that the industry is doing enough for minorities?
I think it's changing, though, hugely,
Yeah. I just I'm just saying, I never took that on. I never took on, I mean, it's hard. It's always hard. You know what I mean? I have white friends, blonde hair, blue eyes, who ain't worked in 5 years. So to single out and say, I mean, have we seen enough representation of African American stories? No. But has Hollywood been horrible to me? No. I've worked. Did I get paid what I deserve is the question we should be talking about. But I can't take that on. We know what the deal is. You understand? So I'm not gonna make it an issue. I'm not gonna say, oh, it's so hard for black. I'm gonna work my ass off, and hopefully the work that I'm doing will change things, will make it better for the next one coming behind me. But while I'm in it, I can't talk about how hard it is or they're not doing this for me, because what happens is I'm blocking myself. Yeah. So what I do is I work, and you let me in, give me an inch, I'll take a mile. I mean, look at me now. I'm on like the hit show. I just produced my own variety show for Christmas, and I watch TV and I go, wow, they're saying Taraji. Not Taraji P. Henson, Taraji's White Hot Holiday. So, I mean, see, I'm white, really, I'm not black.
But, Hollywood, it's interesting because if you look at Europe, there are issues of diversity and there are issues of ageism here. And I've seen in France and in England much better roles available to women over 40. Is that true in France?
I think it's, I don't know, I'm a little embarrassed to always to answer this kind of question because I find it a misogynistic question, actually.
Misogynistic, yes.
Misogynistic question.
But isn't
most of the time, yes, I have to say.
Is the question misogynistic or is the industry misogynistic?
No, the question is
because you're not asking. Who you should be asking is the producers roundtable. Do you think minorities are underrepresented?
Yes.
Do you think women are underpaid?
Yeah.
But we're always put on the chopping block to put our opinion out there. And that question's never asked.
I completely agree with you.
I'm like, why don't you ask them and then have their statements be the headlines in press? I don't want to be a headline anymore about pay equality.
That's
of
why
course,
I changed why I changed what I was saying too, because they expect it. Do you think it's hard for African Americans? Oh yes.
So I'm doing that. And so I agree. I agree with you.
Isabelle, when you got Elle, was it, oh thank God, a great role, or did you hesitate before taking that?
No, and I did not hesitate. I read the book first, and then I thought there was something interesting in the book, the story and the character and everything. Maybe because I didn't really see it as a role, and I thought what was really amazing about it was the fact that it was a non-existing kind of a person, certainly not someone that you could meet in the subway, Yes. Nor was it someone that you could have seen in another fiction. I mean, for me, she was like a prototype, some kind of, she did not exist, And so it was interesting to give birth to someone like her, which never existed before.
Et juste quand on allait mettre les vêtements dans le feu, la police est arrivée. Quelqu'un m'a pris en photo. Et bizarrement, c'est cette photo-là qui est restée gravée dans la mémoire des gens. De moi, à moitié nue, couverte de cendres. La photo de la petite fille psychopathe, à côté de son père. Psychopathe. J'ai un regard vide sur la photo qui est terrifiant.
I thought she was a kind of post-feminist kind of character, Post-feminist in the sense that she's neither a victim nor she's the classical Avenger, James Bond girl taking the gun and shooting the guy. Certain battles have been won before, and so she doesn't have to prove that she's a certain type of a woman. And therefore, very quietly, very sure of herself, she does what she does. In general, it's not really important for me whether a character is doing the right thing or is sympathetic or unsympathetic. It's not really, I don't.
Yeah, I love that in your acting, that you don't make us. Is there a temptation to want to make people like you when you're acting?
You look at me.
You mean I'm not so
character?
That's really pointed.
I had a director who asked me to make the character more sympathetic, and she clearly wasn't sympathetic.
Oh, interesting.
And I said no, because that's not who she is. And I would destroy the character by trying to make her more sympathetic than she actually is. I think it's much more fun to just play someone, be fully who they are.
You can't judge. You can't judge them.
Or either who they are or what the situation make them who they are. That's more what it is about.
When you did La La Land, what was the toughest challenge of that role?
It's a good question, because a lot of what I found really challenging was actually in the storytelling itself. I was really nervous about the tone of the film. I didn't really fully understand how we'd be sitting at a dinner table having an argument, with a handheld camera and then move into CinemaScope and fly into space. So, it was the measuring of how do we move through this and make it all cohesive and not feel inconsistent and strange, and how do you go from something very small into song? And that was a great challenge. Ryan and I both developed the characters with Damien for a long time before we shot, because they were originally written for people younger than us, and we were sort of able to change what was driving these two people to stay in this town where their dreams had been crushed again and again, and they were on the edge of giving up.
Was the dancing and singing difficult?
That was fun.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fun. And we also had the kind of relief of that we didn't need to be perfect. It didn't need to be technically perfect. He wanted it to feel like two people who are, messy and alive, and we sang live.
Oh, you sang live?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
The audition song in City of Stars at the piano, that's live.
You were talking about the rape scenes in Elle. Were they difficult for you to play?
No. No, it was...
Wow.
No, it was very technical, we rehearsed a lot. And plus, you have 4 scenes, so it's all 4 different scenes in 4 different sets. And so, we knew it was never going to be the same. And my partner, Laurent Lafitte, the French actor, was really great. But I mean, we all know that those scenes might be more difficult to watch for the spectator than to do for the actor. To be honest, no, it wasn't. It was very much prepared and very much a lot of shots and a lot of cuts, and it was completely storyboarded by Verhoeven, and it wasn't difficult.
You didn't talk to him about the character.
And he didn't talk to me either, so so what did we say? Just hello and goodbye. No, but it happened to me many, many times, I mean, with Claude Chabrol, for example, I did 7 movies with Claude, and I mean, I think all actors in the world know that the language between a director and an actor is more a silent language, through the camera. It's not verbal, I mean, because cinema is a language, let's say. It is a language. So through that, through the mise en scène and through the camera movements, I mean, that's a way to explain the character. If we had sat down every morning and trying to explain the scenes, it would have been nightmarish.
Do you agree with that, all of you?
I think it's really interesting to hear you say that. I love that. And it does make sense to me. And actually, when I first started doing films, having come from doing plays where everyone's talking, and if the directors tend to be more verbose in the theater, everyone's discussing everything, and it's all about language, and eventually the director goes away and you're there on the stage and you're using your words and your voice. So when I first started doing movies, I was very surprised that there wasn't as much discussion. So now I really see it's great. It's very interesting for me to hear you say that, and it does make perfect sense, especially with, if I can say, very good directors, that they know they have Isabelle Huppert.
Yeah.
They know that, so they understand, okay, I need to find where I put the camera and how I can capture what she has. So we don't have to discuss that. And sometimes when discussing things, you kind of minimize them. And that he also knows it's better for him not to work with that part of her. She's working from what she knows. So if you start to intellectualize about something, as an actor, it kind of can take you in a different direction rather than just the responding that you're able to do out of your intuition, which maybe then you can even surprise yourself, right? Maybe then you don't know quite what you're going to do. If you've discussed it, there's a plan, you know? You can work out of a different place inside of yourself. I mean, Mike was very good at that. You know, Mike
Mills. Oh,
Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Natalie because she worked with Mike Nichols. Yeah, he was great at that. You know, not saying a lot, but very responsive, very watching very carefully, breathing every breath with you, but not getting in your way.
You were very close to him. What did he teach you about acting?
Oh, well, a lot. I feel like he taught me a lot about life. I feel like, I don't know, I think there's a lot of us here who had like a big influence from him. And I think one of the things that most surprised me was when he passed, there were so many people who he was like the most important person in their life, where you felt like, oh, if I put that much energy into someone, I could do that for one person. And he did that for like 50 people, maybe more. And to see that kind of energy given to so many people and to his own family too. I mean, of course, it's not like he was just taking care of all the movie people he worked with and like forgetting about his kids. He's like first and foremost with the kids and the grandkids, and then 50 people who he mentored and nourished, and that's like the most beautiful thing and you could ever do, and to take that kind of interest in other people and love for other people and nourishing other people in a real, like he would take me out to lunch and be like, you need to get a new money manager, or like, just like out of the blue, or like call me up and be like, what's going on with your boyfriend? I don't know. Or like, do you know this therapist? You should talk to her. I mean, very like ways where you just felt like he was thinking about you in such a like family way, and he had sort of infinite energy to give. So anyway, hope
anybody
to pass
who
it on.
taught you like that, a director who really helped shape your thinking about your work?
Mike was one of them.
Really?
I'm sorry, I'm so tired. I start. I have a lot of regrets because I'm not a naturally secure person.
There's Mike.
For those of the audience who can't see it, part of our flats in the background collapsed.
Mike really reached out to me in that way, and I didn't know how to respond because I wasn't secure enough in my own self to just allow him to be Mike. I was so wrapped up in like, I'm not smart enough to be friends with Mike Nichols, And I remember him talking about you a lot. He really loved you.
He really loved you.
And so he called me Amela. Amela, you must call me when you're in New York. And I never would, and it's like it's a huge regret. And it's something that's changed me a lot over the course of the years. This has happened with a couple relationships. And I'm like, oh, get over yourself, Adams. Like, really? Just, like I missed so many wonderful people and moments because of my own self-doubt. And,
do you still have those self-doubts?
Yeah, I don't let them get in the way anymore. I now just accept it. Annette and I were talking, and just go, well, that's happened. Sure I do. I don't know if it was just starting late in the industry or not, coming from a small town, not feeling educated, and suddenly being around these masters of industry and people who were so well-read and so worldly and so open and funny, and wanting to receive from them so much, but feeling like I couldn't give back and not trusting that I could then
Did you feel that with Denis Villeneuve on Arrival?
With Denis?
Yeah.
He is so wonderfully compassionate to actors on set, which is so not always the case. And he created this very calm environment in which to allow us to have these silent moments full of breath and full of awe and full of wonder and full of confusion and conflict. And his direction never felt like condescending in any way. He was always like, this is my bad French-Canadian accent, but he's always like, I deeply love what you have shared with us in this. And I was like, he deeply, and then of course that actor thing happens where then he's like, we can move on now. And you're like, no, let's go until you deeply love. He's like, this is a shot of your hands, Amy. And I'm like, oh, okay. But aside from that, he also has developed a lot of really wonderfully complex, true female roles. And that's really, I'm not saying that's unique for a man necessarily, but the way he does it is unique. I know. But he allows women to be smart and tough, but at the same time, vulnerable. Now that's a proper introduction.
Did you get more interested in aliens from doing that film?
I'm pretty interested in aliens. I guess, but not really. I became more interested in human nature. I mean, for me, it's how we relate to one another. That was the theme in the film that kind of surprised me. Because when I first sat with Denis, he said, I can't talk about Denis without doing that bad accent. I'm sorry. He said, yes, there will be aliens and there will be all this world stuff, but at the end, it is mom. It's a mother.
Yeah, there you go.
It's just a mother telling a story to her daughter. And that kills me. And that got me, and I said, let's do it. Let's do it. And I thought, what director, male or female, has ever sat me down and said, this is a story of a mom telling the story of her life, which was the original title. That's the title of the short story that it's based on by Ted Chiang, because that's what it is.
Is there any role any of you've played that you felt has really changed your thinking about life?
No.
No? Are you serious? You've done like 60 films or more.
Never changed anything, no. I don't know, because life is here and doing roles is here. It's completely separate. Although it's completely in fusion, but yet it is separate. Yeah. So I can't say that I learned anything from acting. I mean, for me, acting is never about learning, or it's just about doing it, the present time. It's all about the pleasure of doing it.
It is a pleasure, is it?
Yeah. It's an immense pleasure, yeah. It's when you forget about reality. But then it doesn't...
Is reality not a pleasure? Or?
Yes, not always. Not always. And the moment you do it, it's very hard to explain what you feel when you act, actually. It's something between consciousness and not consciousness. It's a very, very special state of mind, which is not being drunk, but it's close to a state when you're a little drunk, I think, yes, and you have and this is what I seek when I act all the time. And this is what I find, actually, several times a day, every time I act. But then when it's over, It doesn't pursue me, it doesn't follow me. I have nothing to do with these people, Obviously, I'm not running. I never run a video game company. I just been a math teacher. I'm very bad at math. I don't know those people. I mean, they're foreigners to me. And so once it's over,
Is it over for you too, Naomie, when you've done a role?
Yeah, I mean, Paula is over. I'm thankfully very relieved not to be in her skin anymore, because I think she's racked with a lot of guilt. But when I played Winnie Mandela in Long Walk to Freedom, that role stayed with me for months afterwards. I couldn't get her out of my skin at all, because it was the experience also of filming that in South Africa. And the legacy of apartheid is so real and so present when you're filming there, that it just gets under your skin in a really unpleasant way, actually. And also because Winnie's journey is so much fueled by hatred, because she's been brutalized so much, that it really leaves you in quite a nasty place that I actually had to work very hard to come out from, because I like to always be very light, and really see the beauty in people and life. But she's seen such darkness that it's hard for her to see the light. And that was really hard to escape from.
And how did you escape from it?
Taking time out. I didn't work for a while, and I just, lived life, and my life is very different from Winnie's, thankfully, and living in London, so yeah.
How about you? Do you escape your characters, Emma?
Yes. For me, it's so consuming when I'm working on something. It's so hard for me to maintain I'm not texting people back in time or calling people back, and I'm like, God, sorry, I'm just consumed. And because of that, I think realizing it makes up such a huge part of my life, I find the growing me, the adult, I guess I've become, through so much of that work, you know, the relationships I have with the people I'm working with and how to stand firm in what I believe and in my power and the mistakes that I've made, that I've seen how I should have interacted with people, how I should have stood up for parts of a character, or not just the character, but how I should have stood up for myself as an actor or as a woman. Or times I could have taken it more lightly and gotten closer to people, but felt insecure. Like those are the things that I find from job to job, and it makes it more exciting to work, I think.
I've had roles be very therapeutic for me. I've had roles that was so close to my life that made me examine that part of my life. There was one part of my life where I felt like I was a victim. And I did a film and I was like, you really weren't the victim. You chose to be in that situation. And I don't know if I would have grown personally had I not played that role, because I was stuck on victim. You know, when I did Benjamin Button, I had recently gone through death. I lost my father. I lost 2 years before that, my son's father. And then the year that I was filming, I lost a cousin. And I remember the day that Queenie died in the film. It was Queenie's funeral, and I was so heartbroken because I couldn't go to my cousin's funeral. I was in this casket, and on my left hand, the prosthetics kept lifting, because by this point, Queenie had aged, she was 70-something, and the prosthetic kept lifting, and I was like, you better get this, because Fincher is very particular. We'll do this 100 times if you don't get this hand right. And I get out and I call my godmother right away. And I'm like, how was the funeral? Was it beautiful? How did he look? And she said, oh, it was amazing, except that rigor mortis kept set in his left hand. And so, although I couldn't be there, I was kind of there, you know, and it was my job. It was my work as an artist that had me there with him. You know, I take acting a little different. It is very spiritual. I think sometimes it is hard to shake a character because you're allowing this person to use your body as a vessel to breathe their truth. And I think acting can be very therapeutic for actors, because if you're missing it in your life, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna miss it on the page. So I constantly have to deal with my shit, because if I don't, it will cloud the characters. Because then I'll get the script and be like, she wouldn't say that. No, you wouldn't say that. It has nothing to do with you. And so I can't judge it. So I just think that it's so powerful, acting, and what we do as artists is just really powerful. And so yes, sometimes it's very hard to walk away from a character.
Do you find it therapeutic?
I do, yeah, because I think particularly at the very start of my career, I always find it therapeutic, but particularly at the start because I was so shy and I thought I was this person that I call myself, Naomie, you know, and what I discovered through acting is we're not who we think we are at all, because there are so many different people within us, because every character really ultimately I never think is found outside of ourselves. I think it's found within. And through that whole process, I've discovered that I'm so much more than I ever thought I was. You know, when you look at somebody and you say, oh my God, they murdered someone, or they jumped into a burning building because they wanted to rescue someone, and I would never do that. And acting forces you to go into that person's shoes and say, experience that, live that, and see who you would be. And you discover you're so much more than you ever thought you were. And I think that is so beautiful. So I also agree with Taraji
How
that
about
it's
you,
a very
Natalie?
spiritual thing.
I think that there's certainly, like, I find that my personal life becomes much more, like, stable when I'm working.
Wow.
Because I feel like all of the stuff I guess I need to be crazy about, I can do at work.
Wow.
But I feel like I tend to avoid things that are close to me most of the time. That it is something that's more like what you were saying, something I would never do. Like, it seems like an opportunity to try something or be someone that you aren't in life.
You're all very accomplished actresses. Is there one thing you'd still like to accomplish outside work?
Right now, a vacation.
I'd like to get
Could
my
be
house
zip lining, climbing a real mountain. Is there any dream you have? I want to do this before I...
Well, I've just played a mother, and I'm not a mother, so I'd love to experience what that's like. Yeah.
Annette, how about you?
Traveling, I think in general. I've got a couple of very dear friends that I think, 2 women friends that I have. Like, we could go on an adventure together and we could get along very well.
Where would you go?
there's so many places that I haven't been. I'd love to go to South America and really investigate that whole part of the world. I've not been to Australia yet. I mean, there's many places I haven't been. But.
Natalie?
I don't know, this is, I guess, a serious answer, so excuse me for being very serious.
I like serious answers.
I think I started crying at the table. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like very urgent right now to make change, like in local communities. Like
in what particular area?
Right now, it feels really important to push female leadership. So I would be really, I feel like we need to like teach girls to be bosses now, like yesterday.
Isabelle, you're holding your head in your hands.
I was hoping that
you can't
were going to skip my turn.
Are you kidding?
But you didn't.
She tried to become invisible. It didn't
No
work.
way.
It didn't work. I had to be invisible. You get me mad.
Yeah, there you go.
Amy.
Oh, you went out of sequence. Surprise. I don't know, maybe get a degree.
Oh, in what?
Psychology or sociology.
Yeah.
I like
That'd
that.
be great.
Yeah. I don't.
Emma.
To have a family. And it makes me honestly flush because it feels like such a vulnerable thing to say.
Yeah.
It's such a crazy, incredible thing. I mean, how wild to have children and a family. It's just very
It's
much.
cute when they're little and then
Okay, last but not least.
she's drunk off of baby powder.
One thing you haven't accomplished that you'd like to.
One thing I haven't accomplished that I would like to. Does it have to be reality? I wish I had wings and I could fly.
Yeah.
I wish I could. That's more fantasy. But I've always had a fascination with wings. I have tattooed on them. And sometimes in
You
my
have
mind,
winged tattoos?
on my lower back, I fly a little different. But those are my wings.
Lovely answer. Thank you all for taking part in the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable, The Actress. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Amy, to your room for the drinks. Hi.
Hi.
What's going on? I'm Alicia Keys.
I'm Taraji P. Henson.
John Favreau.
Jeff Bridges here.
Matt Damon.
Naomie Harris.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
For more videos,
Be sure to subscribe.
I guess subscribe online for more videos if you want more of that stuff.
I don't work for the Hollywood Reporter. They paid me to say that, though.